This is News You Can Use.
The more you know, the more value you and I can offer to our customers. Recently, we hosted Doug Duncan, Chief Economist for Fannie Mae, in our Alpharetta offices for a comprehensive discussion on all the factors currently impacting the housing market, as well as a discussion for his best forecast for the remainder of 2022 and 2023. Over the coming weeks, barring any significant change in market conditions, we'll be sharing insights from our discussion to provide you a better understanding of our industry. Again, the more you know, the more I know, the more value that we can offer to our customers. In 2020, Webster's Dictionary word of the year was pandemic. In 2021, the word of the year was vaccine. There are some strong contenders for 2022, but in my estimation, the word of the year for 2022 should be inflation. In this clip, Doug unpacks the word inflation, what it means, is it transitory, what we're experiencing, and more importantly, he gives us some clues on how we can finally move past it.
This is News You Can Use.
Since most people in the room have never been alive to experience inflation, I don't want to assume anything here today, like that people even know what it is. So I'd like you, if you would, to define inflation for us.
The textbook definition of inflation is the increase in the general price level in the economy. So if there's no inflation, prices should stay flat. But of course, individual product and service prices change all the time. Some going up, some going down. Could you have bought a 65-inch flat TV 10 years ago? The answer is no, they didn't make them, right? Now you can buy one and they'll throw in a couple of smaller screens with. That's an example of price declines. That's going on at the same time as, say, the price of automobiles is going up because they're adding more technology to the car. But the inflation is measured as the rate of change in the general price level.
So, and then there's this phrase that the Fed used that I'd like you to explain called transitory inflation.
Yeah, so the first time I heard that word, I said, well, I keep the Oxford English Dictionary next to my computer, where I assume the rest of you do as well. And so I looked up the word transitory, and it says not permanent. I'm like, well, that's a hole even I can drive my Ford F-150 through. And so under that definition, life is transitory.
And why this matters is because when inflation first showed up for the first time in 40 years in any material way, the Fed's reaction to it was to call it transitory.
Yeah, and by which they meant this will pass quickly.
Right.
And the reason they made that statement was because they could see the ships lining up outside of Long Beach Harbor and the other temporary bottlenecks, temporary from their perspective, on the supply side of the economy. So it wasn't just in housing that supply was an issue, but it was more broadly. Well, there's no question that there were certain bottlenecks that emerged because of the presence of the virus and safety considerations, and not only that, the production of some critical materials which were produced overseas in areas that were hard hit by the COVID. But our view was immediately that there were also geopolitical factors involved, like, for example, the discussion here in the US about whether this emerged from China. And it was in the midst of some changing attitudes about China, and we had a lot of supply chains that were integral, where China was integral to that supply. So our view, after we talked it through, was that, in fact, this is going to lead to a restructuring of supply chains, not just clearing bottlenecks, and that is time-consuming and expensive. And we took the same view on the issue of decarbonization of the economy. If in fact there is going to be a long-seated, serious attempt to decarbonize the US economy, that also is going to be time-consuming and expensive, since over 90% of all our energy is carbon-based. So our perspective was those two things mean there's an underlying component of inflation that's actually increasing as opposed to subsiding. So we were never in the transitory camp.
Thank you, Doug, for offering your perspective. And no, none of the rest of us sleep with the Oxford English Dictionary by our beds. Next week, we'll unpack the steps the Fed has taken to quell inflation and discuss when we can expect to see a season of normalcy return to the housing market. Opportunity is just around the corner, and that's news you can use.